Hello, this is Annie, and I'm here again in Veronaville for another speed build, and this time I am building a house for Antonio Monty and his two children, Beatrice and Benedict. And as I mentioned in the previous episodes, I was not sure at all how to build this house, so I actually ended up needing some inspiration before I could actually sit down to build this, which is why I ended up building both the Monty restaurant and the Turner's house next door before I built this house. And that way I could actually draw some inspiration for this house while still also making it more of a family house vibe as compared to the more old and luxurious houses next door. Because Antonio is going to be the sort of scorned oldest brother. He was supposed to be the heir of the Monty family in my mind, because he's supposed to be older than Claudio. But something happened making him lose his inheritance, I guess. And that's why I felt it was important to give him a smaller, cheaper house, so that it's actually visibly affecting him, that he is not the heir, you know? You can actually see that he has to live with more meager means. Not that this is a cheap house or anything, but it certainly is not a mansion or anything. So that's sort of the vibe that I was going for here, that it's probably a house that still is belonging to the Monty family and has been that for generations possibly, but that it's not the house that the heir would live in, you know. And I was struggling here a bit with the roof to start out. I of course wanted to preserve the tower shape that I've really fallen in love with. That's been used both in the Monty ranch and also in the Turner's mansion next door. So I wanted to build a tower like that as well. But then I was struggling with the roof up top because it was so misaligned. So I actually ended up having to put in these kind of balcony boxes, or what to call them, on the front of the roof, and then build a little mock floor to put the roof on top of, to extend it above that, to make it look a little bit better. And then I could have this sloped roof running down from that. So it was a bit of a struggle, but I ended up making it work in the end. And this house is going to have a built-in garage that fitted in quite nicely, I felt like. And of course I'm again going with a Torox set for this. And also the open archways, that's really become a theme for these houses, but I like that they're tied together in this sense. And I like that I also waited with building this house for more inspiration, because that way I could really take things from all of the houses and blend them all together into this one. So that ended up working out quite well actually. And this upstairs area was actually something that I started to plan out first. I ended up putting down the staircase right there, and then starting to map out sort of where I wanted the rooms to be, taking quite a lot into consideration, as for example that I wanted to use the Torox doors, that I don't like the way they look on the diagonal, so I really didn't want to have any diagonal walls where I needed to have doors, so that limited how I could place that down as well. Because those doors just become so wide for some reason when they're on the diagonal, so I prefer to not do that. And I'm putting down all of this effort into doing this, and then in the end I actually have to redo all of this, because once I actually travel down to the first floor and start to try to figure out how to work with the entrance, I ended up realizing that I couldn't really make it work with the way that I had placed the staircase. Like, it just ended up becoming this huge entrance hall that couldn't really be used for much, and then there wasn't really a natural connection to this sort of long hallway that leads out to the back of the house. This staircase sort of just cut it all in half. So I was sort of scratching my head at this point, trying to figure out, like, how do I fix this? But in the end, I actually couldn't make it work at all. So I had to bite the sour apple, as we say in Sweden, and travel upstairs again and redo everything. Which was a shame, because I really liked the way that it had turned out at first. But there you go. Sometimes you just can't solve everything. You just have to redo it. Yeah, so this family, of course, consists of only Shakespearean named characters. And both Beatrice and Benedict are from the same play. They're from Much Ado About Nothing. And hilariously enough, in that play, they are lovers, not siblings. So that's interesting. They actually start out being sort of enemies. They're sort of the original enemies to lovers, one could say. They really are very verbal about disliking one another at the start, and then they are sort of tricked into falling in love with each other, or like sort of tricked into realizing their feelings, rather, I should say. And in the end, they are a very stable couple, actually. So yeah, I am actually seriously considering some sort of Game of Thrones like plot line here. Or maybe more like leaning towards the Borgias incestuous kind of vibe. I don't know what I'm gonna go with. Or maybe they're just gonna be really, really close as siblings. But yeah, I think that I'm gonna have to work with that in some way, at least. It's gonna be interesting. Especially, I think, if I'm gonna go with the arranged marriage idea that I have sort of planned out for Beatrice already. Because, my idea is that she's gonna have an arranged marriage with the next door neighbors, Ralph Turner. And then if she is already having that decided for her, I guess she would react quite badly in some way and maybe do something really outrageous, like falling in love with her brother. I don't know. But yeah, I'm gonna have to think about how to work with that. And then, of course, we also have Antonio. And there's quite a few Antonios in Shakespeare's stories, actually. But I think that there's 3 more prominent ones. The most prominent one is the main character in The Merchant of Venice. That Antonio is, a merchant, and he is very, very close friends with a man. He's called like Basanto or something like that. I know there's 2 S's in there and it starts with a B. And he ends up lending money from a Jew called Shylock because his friend wants to get married. And he's known as someone who's very generous, and also in the start of the play, as I understand it, he's feeling depressed. And I think that that's a theme that runs throughout the play as well, which suits Antonio in The Sims, honestly, because of course he has been married and his wife has passed away and he's left with 2 kids. But what's a popular theory actually when it comes to Shakespeare's play is that part of why Antonio is depressed is because he's actually in love with his friend and he is suppressing his homosexuality. And I've been thinking quite a lot about what to do with Antonio, because I have this really huge plot line going on with the hero, of course, that she was actually in love with Antonio's brother, Claudio, because of course Hero and Claudio are supposed to be together in their play, so it only makes sense. It would actually also check out then somewhat that Antonio is actually a homosexual and that he is only married to Hero at the start there because it's an arranged marriage, I guess it could be. And that's why there's a lot of that going on. And that's actually also tying together a little bit with another play that there's an Antonio in. And that is, which one was it? Yeah, The Tempest, right? Because that's the play where, who is it? Viola and her brother Sebastian are sort of cross-dressing as each other, believing each other to be dead, I think. And in that play, Antonio is a sea captain, previous pirate. And also, actually, in that play, there's a lot of fan theories going on that Antonio is homosexual as well, that he is in love with Sebastian in that case. So it's actually quite interesting that there's two Shakespearean plays where the character is interpreted in some ways of being gay, and that would actually check out quite well with what I've got planned for Antonio in The Sims as well. And then, of course, the third play that Antonio is quite prominent in is no, wait, am I thinking about... No, actually, yeah. I think The Tempest is actually the third play. Which play is it with Viola and Sebastian then? Ah, right, no. So the story about Viola and Sebastian is actually Twelfth Night. That's the one. And then The Tempest, of course, is the third play where Antonio is also quite prominent, and that is where he is the brother of the main character, the magician, and he has usurped his throne. He's I think he was the Count of Milan or something like that. So it's actually the opposite of what I'm going for in my story, that he has taken over like the inheritance and the throne in this case, whereas in my story it's going to be the other way around, that he was had to let it go. So yeah, that's quite interesting. But something that I've also noticed in all three of these stories is that he doesn't really have a good romantic relationship in any of them. I think he's actually not having a wife or anything like that at all in The Merchant of Venice. He's completely alone. And then in, of course, in Twelfth Night, he's also single. And in The Tempest, I don't know actually what his family situation looks like, but I think at least on the island where they're shipwrecked, he doesn't have anyone. So that's also interesting, because that's the situation that he starts out with in The Sims as well, that he's alone. And yeah, I guess that if he has been married, because it was arranged and all of the stuff that's happened with his last wife ended up happening, then it makes sense that he might just want to stay away from anything like that. And I am assuming that his family isn't really positive about him finding a guy to be with. Maybe they could accept it like behind closed doors or something, now that he's not the primary heir. But I'm assuming that could have played a part in his having to step down from that position. There's actually also another little key information that I have stumbled over that is also influencing this. And that is something that is stated in Benedict's biography, actually. It says, Benedict is the gentler half of Antonio's twins, sensitive and kind. He may someday be essential to solving the question of his mother's death. I don't know if you remember this, but I have decided that the hero has actually faked her own death, so she's not actually dead. But I have been really trying to figure out what this essential part of Benedict is gonna be the key to solving the mystery. And what I've come up with is actually his eye color. He has dark blue eyes, but interestingly enough, his father and also Hero, his mother, both have brown eyes. So my thought process here is, where do those blue eyes come from? And what I figured out also was that Claudio, Antonio's brother, has also blue eyes. They are light blue though, so it doesn't fit perfectly. But my idea here is that actually Benedict and Beatrice are not even Antonio's real children. And I am pretty sure that, well, my thought is that the entire Monty family knows this. It's a secret that they're keeping close to themselves, of course, but I think that fact that Antonio actually doesn't have any heirs, combined with his homosexuality, could be the reason why he had to step down from being the heir and hand that over to his brother. And that would actually also make Beatrice and Benedict siblings with Mercutio and Romeo, and also Viola, who I'm gonna add in later as well. So that's also a little bit interesting. Half siblings, of course, that is, but... So basically what I think happened was that Antonio had an arranged marriage to Hero. He was aware of his own sexuality, but before their marriage, Hero didn't know about that. But after they had gotten married, it became quite obvious to her, and she learned about that, and they had to sort of learn to live with each other, despite the sexuality sort of standing in between them, because of course they wouldn't be able to have a true marriage that way. And in that same time period, they, of course, Hero started to be around the Montys more and ended up falling in love with Claudio, who also fell in love with her. But of course, Claudio also had an arranged marriage to Olivia, so he also followed through with that. But he became Hero's lover on the side of that. And yeah, they ended up having children together. And that became known within the family. And yeah, when all that happened, Antonio lost his status as the heir. And along the same time, I think that Hero was really pushing for Claudio to leave Olivia and be with her instead. But then, actually, one of the things that we know about Olivia is that she was pregnant when she died. And my thoughts here is that that the child was actually hers and Claudio's, and that Hero found out that actually Claudio was not going to run away with her. He had actually fallen in love with his wife. So she ended up faking her own death to get away from all that, because what would she have left except for her children, of course, when she couldn't find love with her husband, and when her lover actually ended up scorning her. I don't think that Hero had anything to do with Claudio and Olivia's death, though. I might change my mind on that. It's possible that she could have, like, in revenge or something like that, arranged that to happen. But at the moment, I don't think so. And that's also what has left Antonio in this situation. So that's sort of what my thought process is for this family. And yeah, I'm gonna have to see sort of what I end up doing with him from this point on. I mean, it is possible that depending on what kind of Sims or other families I have in this neighborhood, that he might find himself in some sort of marriage out of convenience with another woman. Possibly. That could end up happening. Or it could also be the case that he ends up snapping at some point, and that he leaves his family behind and follows through with his true desires if he finds a man that he falls in love with. Yeah, there's a lot of different kind of plot lines that I can go with from this point, I think. And also, I think that the fact that her little brother is homosexual, and knowing all the struggles that he's been going through because of that might have been one of the reasons why Bianca was actually able to look past the family feud and end up bonding with Kent Cap, because she found out about his sexuality as well, of course, and yeah, that she's sort of become a confidant for him in that sense. Yeah, so that's what I've got for this family so far. So there's a lot of things that can happen from this point on, of course. So as for the layout in this house, I actually designed it a little bit similarly to how I designed the Turner mansion next door, that there's this dedicated family area upstairs, and then downstairs is more for having guests over, I suppose. So just bedrooms upstairs. And there's also an empty bedroom left there that was possibly intended for another kid, possibly before Hero, in quotation marks, passed away. But that has ended up being left empty. You know, come to think of it, actually, it is very possible that Antonio helped Hero fake her own death. It would be a little bit cold-hearted towards his children, of course, if that's the case, because he would have had to just basically trick them into thinking that their mother is dead when she's not. But maybe he loves her in his own kind of way, that he's very affectionate towards her, even though he can't love her in the way that she needs, and that he could make that sacrifice for her in exchange for having full custody of the children, then is very possible. And I also feel like Antonio probably is someone who was not a very present father to start out, because he was, of course, aware that the kids were not his. And there might have been some anger within him, knowing that they are actually his brother's children, the same brother that took over his position as the heir. I think that there has been some frustrations that he might have taken out on the children by just not being around much. But I'm sure that what must have happened after Hero left and his brother actually passed away is that he felt a renewed kind of kinship with his children, because he was all that they had left. Like, there was no competition for them anymore. Like, their true mother was gone, and their true father had no way of claiming them as his own children, if he would have wanted that. And that could have been something that Claudio was also holding over Antonio's head in some sense as well. So I think that after he was actually left alone to care for them that he grew more into the fatherly role. And honestly, right now, I feel like he's one of the pre-made Sims who's most like a warm, kind, fatherly type in my mind. So yeah, I look forward to exploring his character more actually as I follow through with this to see where it ends up. This is the way that the house turned out. It's all finished, and yeah, I really like this kind of Italian Mediterranean style. So it's been fun to build these houses, but I think that this is actually going to be the last one that has this exact style for now. And then I'm going to continue on with more of the cap side of the neighborhood and also the university and high school area. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.